Okay, so I don't know if you've already watched episode 1, but if you haven't, just get that right off the bat. Please go watch Andrew Lloyd Webber and his Tim Burton fanfiction, episode 1, because you're not going to really understand this otherwise or why this is significant. But for those of you who are returning and have seen this and have seen the first episode, I generally did not think that I was going to have to make a sequel to this video. But then in the last, almost 6 months, I have vowed more stuff in regards to this weird little rabbit hole of connections. Some of which I probably should have noticed the first time, but I'm going to put together now, and a couple things I actually noticed by myself. So, let's see. And let's start off with the real Kickstarter. The fact that it turns out wearing my little Edward Scissorhand earrings that I have here, turned out that actually made a lot of sense. Matching them with my my little Phantom of the Opera charm necklace that I got here. Anyone's wondering, Town Fair last year, Comic-Con 2024. But let's start with the intro, shall we? The little intro music. So, I said originally in my last video that the Coney Island Waltz, without the lyrics, very much resembles like a Danny Elfman main title that he would do for Tim Burton. Yeah, it turns out I'm actually very on point with that, because I finally figured out what it sounds like. I thought it was giving like Alice's theme from Alice in Wonderland 2010. No, it's actually earlier than that. So, it sounds like Edward Scissorhands made titles, or specifically it's labeled introduction, parentheses, titles. But here, take a listen. So this is Coney Island Waltz. And then this is the very similar kind of choral vocalizing section in the Edward Scissorhands main titles. I was like, are you kidding me? This wouldn't exactly be a case of like being exactly the same. This is more of just like the vibe. The vibe is very the same. It's like, okay. And the thing is, even when Coney Island Waltz was given lyrics later to go, Coney Island, la da 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 da, that whole bit, they left that part in the music where, like, it cuts off, and they left that woo part by itself. So, it's still there. And if you watched the pro shot, the Melbourne pro shot, and it says that part where they just let the stage performers of the Freaks and everything just speak for itself. It's just a woo part of it. You would be forgiven for thinking this was like some kind of part of a Tim Burton adaptation. Like, if you saw that out of context and didn't know it was the Phantom sequel, you would be forgiven for going, whoa, what kind of Tim Burton show is this? And it's like, oh, this is the Phantom of the Opera sequel. You'd be like, what? Which, I mean, makes sense, because, Tim Burton has been adapted for the stage. Obviously, there's Beetlejuice the musical, and I've also since been told that there's an Edward Scissorhands ballet, and also a Big Fish the musical. Thank you, Alex in Burtonland. So, it just falls into that so perfectly. And I also kind of realized that is actually also serves as a leitmotif for Gustave, because that same tune comes back with a mother please, I'm scared, what a dream, an awful dream. And then also he himself vocalizes that section before the Devil Take the Hindmost quartet, where, everyone only cares about how Christine's choice is going to affect them, because nobody cares about what she wants in this show. Jesus Christ. And, I mean, it's really not all that surprising, considering that fact I have seen, Edward Scissorhands compared to Phantom of the Opera, and, Edward compared to Eric. I mean, the 1925 film was named as an outright influence on the product. Plus, Roland Love Never Dies is made into a jerk a la Jim to make Eric seem better by comparison, even though he fared miserably on that front. Kim chooses Edward, but they tragically cannot be together, which Love Never Dies even tried to copy itself off of from the first show, but again, failed. It was just made really pointless. I made a video where I kind of ranted about that already. And it's even funnier now, too, because I found out a couple months ago that about the Super Bowl ad from 2021, where Timothée Chalamet plays Edgar Scissorhands, who's supposed to be, you know, Edward and Kim's son. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I was like, literally the first thought in my head was, okay, who found out Eric and Christine had a kid and said, I'll do you one better. Edward and Kim have a kid. Like, damn, I guess the Phantom reviewer joke would actually apply to it, but this snow is beautiful. So it's like, okay, cool. Oh, speaking of the Phantom reviewer, turns out I probably should have finished watching his Love Never Dies London review before I made my first video about the rabbit hole, because, yeah, there was another Danny Elfman comparison in there that I had apparently missed. One of my long favorite songs from the show, which is, you know, The Beauty Underneath, I'll say it now, I think that song is a bop, and it still is a bop, even if, you know, the lyrics are ugh. But I have loved that song ever since I first watched the Pro Shot when I was 14. But it turns out, yeah, it's, there's a decent-sized resemblance to Insanity by Oingo Boingo, Danny Elfman's former rock band, for those who are not familiar or had parents who lived through the 80s. I only thought to look for that because I watched the Phantom Reviewer's kind of meme video where he said, the beauty underneath, but every time they say beautiful, it's sped up. And someone in the comments said, wow, it actually sounds more like that Oingo Boingo song you mentioned at the speed. I was like, I'm sorry, the what now? So, I would just play the clip that Phantom Reviewer provided in his video to make a point.
I just think this song rocks. It reminds me a bit of that Oingo Boingo song, Insanity.
And besides the shock of, are you freaking kidding me? I realized that actually unlocked a memory for me. I remembered that part somewhere in the back of my head. I had compartmentalized it, and it just hit me. I was like, oh my god, especially with the cover, which, dare I say, kind of looks like how Mr. Squelch looks like in the Melbourne Pro Shot, which is like, coincidence? Okay. But I remember watching this when I was in middle school, like 7th grade, and I got to that part. I was like, okay, I mean, vaguely, and I didn't know what Oingo Boingo was yet, but that was actually around the time that I did find out what it was shortly after, but clearly I wasn't smart enough to make the connection, because my mom had bought the Nightmare Before Christmas CDs, so that fall, so we could, you know, start inviting trick-or-treaters over in our neighborhood, because we were living in a townhouse community at the time. And I was reading inside the little pamphlet, and I saw the part that said that Danny Elfman did all the singing for Jack, and, you know, up to that point, I had only really known him as that guy who makes cool music for Tim Burton. Also, he did Tales from the Crypt, and that was really cool. I didn't know he was a singer. I was just like, whoa, Mom, I've been hearing you this whole time, and she was like, yes, honey, he had a band called Oingo Boingo, and I was like, you know, me being 12 years old, I was like, why does that not surprise me that that's the name? But clearly, I wasn't smart enough to make the connection that Phantom Reviewer had already brought it up. Because then maybe I could have known about this almost 15 years ago, but no, I guess I wasn't smart enough. My brain wasn't fully developed for that, like it is now. But I was like, aw, that's nice. And ironically, that was actually the Halloween that ended up looking like the ending of The Nightmare Before Christmas, because that's when we got hit with Winter Storm Alfred in October. And we had the snow on the ground for Halloween and power out for 8 days. Go look it up. Winter Storm Alfred, Connecticut. You'll see it, which, yeah, haha. It's called Alfred. There you go. Another funny. But yeah, so that was just ironic and just a funny little story I felt like throwing in there. So, but not only that, kind of listening to it more and, you know, remembering why I loved Beauty Underneath so much in the first place when I was 14, because I was the biggest stan of that song, to the point that I showed my friend Ashley. I had her over at the time, and I was just like, Ashley, girl, you gotta listen to this song. It's awesome. And I finally figured out, I think I know why that is. Danny might have actually had a helping hand in that too, because this is what I was listening to when I was 8 years old, and one of our favorite family movies was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Imagination dead. Clots and clatters up the mind. It makes a child so dull and blind. So dull, he can no longer understand a fairy tale, a fairy land, a fairy land, a fairy land. His baby conscious.
I really hope copyright doesn't claim this. Yeah, that's the Mike TV song from Charlie, which always kind of blew my mind as a kid. I was like, this is a lot. I was like, Mom, this is a lot. Why are the lights changing? Why are the Oompa Loompas making weird faces? And it's like, oh, it's the 80s rock of it all. And I realized, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, is this why I like Beauty Underneath so much? Because listen to this. Oh, that's also very loud. I'll try to headphone warning. Fast forward a little. I want you to listen to the backing strings beat right here. Wait for it. Right here.
Yes. Do you find yourself beguiled by the dangerous and wild? Do you feed on the need for the beauty underneath?
I would just go back to Mike TV's song if you heard it. Like they kind of have a like backing strings beat. Then I was like, oh shit. Wait for it, right here. Here. They both have that like that sort of like like backing strings beat in the background. Again, this is all about the vibe, but it kind of blew my mind going, holy crap, is that why I like Beauty Underneath so much? Because I was already introduced to this. I mean, I know everybody says that Beauty Underneath is like the equivalent to the title song in the first show, and yeah, the title song of Phantom is like literally one of my favorite songs of all time. But no, this is probably like even more unabashedly 80s rock compared to everything else, where they just said, fuck it, let's go down, let's go. It's like, Jesus Christ. So I was like, God damn it. So not only does it kind of low-key sound like an actual like a Boingo song, but also kind of sounds like a song that I saw described by Bob Show as just Danny Elfman translating a song to music from the Roald Dahl book and like just going pure Danny Elfman about it. And it's like, yikes. So it's like, oh God. I hope maybe that cleared some things up for other people who love Beauty Underneath so much. You'll go, oh my God, I had no idea. And it's like, yeah, maybe I explained it for someone else too. Who knows? Okay. But I do find it interesting how Beauty Underneath has since, like, been changed. Like, some of the verses have changed. But I highly doubt sounding like Oingo Boingo has anything to do with it because, you know, Beneath the Moonless Sky still sounds the same as it did since the Pro Shot. And we've already discussed how that has a very strong similarity to Sally's song, especially by the end of the song. Can I say song one more time? But I have to say, I do kind of do fuck with this new verse. I kind of like it. Oh. God, I hope copyright doesn't come from me for this.
The call of the beauty underneath. Have you let it
jeez. Like this part. I love this.
Have you heard its music and embraced it? Do you crave the visions that it shows you? Do you wonder why it chose you? Like it knows you. Don't you have a darkness running through you? If you're not afraid, I'll show it to you. You don't feel the darkness through
you. Yeah. I'm sure they did that because they wanted to make it less, they were attempting to make it less creepy, but personally I don't think it succeeded too much because, well, I mean, they still have the part where he's all like, you want to see it? Come closer. And he's like, yes. And it's like, because personally, I think it's kind of easy to ignore until you get to that part of the song, then it gets pretty ewy. So they still have some of that in this song, but I mean, and also I kind of don't like that they changed it so that Christine, he sounds like Christine, which is like, wow, you couldn't have made this any creepier. He's like, wow, that's my son because he can vocalize like his mother, and it's like, I don't like that. I mean, not that the piano, the Maury piano saying, according to this piano, Eric, you are the father. It's like, I'm not sure the Maury piano is much better, but whatever. Credit to the commenter who originally made that joke. But it certainly explains a lot for me. It's like, oh, it's the 80s rock of it all, which now explains why well, not explaining, but I mean, if anything that good came out of it, it's part of the reason why I've started listening to more Boingo-loo music lately, so yay! And leaving comments, like on the Weird Science video, just going, this must be where the Christine bot came from. I hate that thing so much, and I'm so glad they removed it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't still exist, or was a thing that existed. Yikes. Anyway, yeesh. And again, I'm surprised that there's not more fan discussion about it. Ooh, I got this little hair sticking out because it's humid out. Oh, and on the subject of insanity, if we can stay on that song, this is something I found on my own because I was making jokes about the lyrics because, there's a part where they go, say hello, and I just thought of Bathing Beauty, of course, going, say hello, what a cutie, what a peach, and then suddenly it started to hit me, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, don't tell me Bathing Beauty, arguably the worst song in Love Never Dies, sounds like this too. I mean, it doesn't help that there's literally a lyric in Insanity about bathing, where they go, bathing and be reborn. But I kind of ended up fitting so much that I ended up making this little pseudo, amateur edit here, because, I don't really have those kinds of skills. But here, this is what I put out a couple months ago. Why do I have the volume so loud? God, I don't keep saying this, but I don't think copyrights go like this. Here we go. Like, does it not work? Does it not weirdly work? Again, I think I managed to make Bathing Beauty sound marginally better, but... Let me just get to the part where Danny comes back on the song, because somehow that also works. Like, why did also Danny Elfman coming back on the song somehow also work? Oh, yeah, and I did forget to mention tying Insanity back to Bathing Beauty, Beauty Underneath. It doesn't help that also both of those songs are made up of a main male vocalist and then some children in the background, and they have a ha notion of these kids are singing about things they probably don't understand, lol. So okay, but yeah, this one is kind of just a theory, but it's very interesting how Bathing Beauty somehow also matches up with this again with rhythm and syllables, when it's just like da 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 da. Da, 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 da. It's like, yeah. Well, they're a little weird. Like I said, at least somehow it actually manages to make Bathing Beauty sound marginally better. Oh, and speaking of Charlie the Chocolate Factory earlier, it kind of also hit me that maybe there's also a chance, that Gustave, especially pro shot Gustave, is kind of giving Freddie Highmore's Charlie Bucket. I mean, look at how he was originally cast in the London show. He was a blonde kid, which kind of always confused me. I was like, I'm sorry, but something about Eric and Christine producing a blonde kid just feels wrong. And I always appreciate how in the Melbourne show, when they made him a brunette, his hair is all, matches Eric's wig, which I always thought was kind of funny. But he definitely, Jack Lyle in the Pro Shot, he's definitely kind of giving that, posh kind of British voice where he's talks like this, and has that soft spoken boy thing, but he's also seems more mature a little bit while still being a kid. So I was like, yeah, he kind of low-key resembles Freddie Highmore as Charlie Bucket if you kind of really squint. But not only that, but this concept of how Love Never Dies, Eric is just all like, has become this genius entrepreneur who's going to bequeath his entire empire onto a boy he just met who happens to understand his vision. Is that not what Depp's Wonka wants to do for Highmore's Charlie? And it's like, oh. Not only that, but I also found out that Gustave and Charlie are both 10 years old. I was like, oh, that's not helping. But yeah, like Eric and Gustave together, it's giving Wonka and Charlie from Burton's movie, if you really eyeball it. I mean, heck, Charlie even ends up going off with Wonka at the end of the film, like towards the end of the film, without his parents' knowledge, just so he could go help him with his daddy issues. The way Christine Rao would lose track of their kid because, damn, A+ parenting, and he's just running off with the Phantom just to be all like, I like weird stuff, we both like weird stuff, la 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 la. So it's like, okay, just thought I'd mention that. Again, it's more of a theorizing concept. Oh. And then, of course, there's Batman. Someone's looking at me right now going, I'm sorry, how does Batman apply? Well, Phantom Reviewer re-uploaded his video about Dario Argento's Phantom from, 2009. He did that a couple months ago. And I was made to remember, oh, Dario Argento possibly ripped off Batman Returns in a multitude of ways. Oh! He pointed out 5 things, a good chunk of that being related to Danny DeVito's Penguin backstory and demise, which then he tried to plot onto Julian Sands' completely normal-looking Phantom, which means that analogy failed on 2 levels. But I actually noticed 2 more things that he missed after I watched Batman Returns for myself a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, shoot. I was like, oh, Weber, does that mean he's on the same level as Argento in this regard? Because, dude, that is not where you want to be, even in a small way. But then recently, I found out, also, Batman Returns wasn't the only Burton Batman film to incorporate Phantom of the Opera in the story, because then I found out about the freaking story about how Batman 1989 lacked a proper conclusion until Jack Nicholson and John Peters saw Phantom on West End during filming, became inspired, and approached Burton with the concept. And I was like, what the frick? So it turns out, liking Tim Burton films and liking Phantom of the Opera has been inherently entwined since the freaking 80s, almost to the point of both their inceptions. I was like, that is actually freaking nuts. Like, they were low-key destined. They both, started out Burton made his first movie in 1985. Phantom debuted in 1986. And then Phantom helps, Burton get his big summer blockbuster, his first big film, major successful film that really puts him on the map as a director. And also helped to cement summer blockbuster. It's like, ooh, Phantom helped with summer blockbuster concept. Ooh, how exciting. And then freaking Weber, in the midst of crafting this Phantom sequel, that he ends up wanting to put alongside the Phantom of the Opera's 25th anniversary. And also, Burton and Elfman's collaborative 25th anniversary. I've seen the music box they apparently made for that. And it very much ends up looking like Tim Burton's style. It's like, that's actually crazy. That's actually nuts. Whoa. And then, of course, we have last year where, Wednesday Season 2 literally goes out of its way to say, hey, we're Phantom of the Opera themed, and encourage new fans to check it out. It's like, so it's like, oh my god, so Tim Burton and Phantom of the Opera were basically destined to be interlocked. That's freaking nuts. That's freaking nuts! You wanna get nuts? Let's get nuts. Hey. Yeah. Oh, and also, just as a side note with that, I also find it really interesting that when the 2 instances where Tim Burton made a sequel or a continuation of a very hugely successful product that he made, and he gets more creative freedom as a result, both with Batman and Wednesday, he ends up choosing to go in a Phantom of the Opera, more Phantom of the Opera heavy leaning direction. okay, Tim, I'll see you. Because, Batman Returns is what it is and has, goes in a more Phantom thing with, say, the Penguin, and Wednesday Season 2 is Phantom themed, blah, 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 blah. I'll probably talk about that in a separate video a little bit more, because I do think that's really interesting, but it's like, okay, Tim, I see you. Respect. Oh, and then, of course, it's just in this rabbit hole of searching and just seeing what connections I could find. We also have, the Nightmare Before Christmas comparisons from way back when in 1993 that saw its Andrew Lloyd Webber comparisons. As well as the fact that I have since realized that Miss Fleck, the Mighty Squelch, and Dr. Gangle, they are the lock, shock, and barrel of Love Never Dies. I found that on a Letterboxd review. They say, like, hey, they remind me of Nightmare Before Christmas characters. And I was like, what the heck? Especially because they're literally their only job is to just kidnap somebody. To the point that I realized that their little coaxing song that they do to Gustave at the beginning of, Beautiful, it literally is, with maybe just a few notes switched around, it's freaking Kidnap the Santa Claus. Slow down. Like, I put it on 1.5x speed, and I made this little edit, and tell me these songs are not practically the same.
Come along and follow us.
This is Love Never Dies.
Come along and follow us. Come and meet the master. Hurry up and follow us. Hurry if you care to. Soon the dark will swallow us. Follow if you dare to.
And then here's Kidnapping Santa Claus. Let me just take me a second. This one really had me giggling because I was like, what the heck? This song of all things? Oh, jeez. Volume. And it doesn't help that in the original soundtrack recording, 2 out of the 3 voices legitimately sound like the late Paul Reubens and Catherine O'Hara. May they both rest in peace. The only one you ironically didn't sound like was Danny Elfman's barrel voice, because you showed like, I got the deep voice because I'm the Mighty Squelch. And it's like, okay. Except you somehow managed to make it creepier by taking the amusingly creepy concept of 3 little kids kidnapping a grown man, and then singing about ways of dispatching him, and you actually made it about 3 grown adults kidnapping a kid. Good job. Jesus. And, I found some old Nightmare Before Christmas reviews that, mention Andrew Lloyd Webber's name a few times, because try as Danny Elfman might to not sound like Broadway, which he has illustrated many times, obviously people are still going to be people, and they're still going to hear what they want. So it seems at the end of the day, Jack's Lament, Poor Jack, and Sally's Song all seem to give people the most amount of Webber vibes. And no, I'm not just saying that because those are the 3 I've seen edited to Phantom videos that I put in my favorites playlist. Ha 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 ha. And I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna pretend I don't kind of hear it, even though I feel bad. Because I know it's like, Danny, I'm sorry. And yeah, Jack's Lament, he does give like a real Michael Crawford vibe, whether he likes it or not. There's a reason why I started that playlist. Gonna use the Nightmares at the top about liking baritones and barittenors, because it's helped realize that's my type. But here's one that I really love, that is probably my favorite of all those little mentionings. There was a time when there was this reviewer guy from like back in 1993, I think his name was, Ken Eisner, and he was actually not a fan of this movie or the score. He wrote, quote, apparently Elfman aspires to be the new Freddie Mercury, or maybe an updated Dick Powell, as he croons his way through at least a half-dozen Andrew Lloyd Webber, style songs, meaning these can be proven, legally, to be songs because they are words set to music, end quote. And I was like, huh! I mean, I know it didn't jive with everybody when it first came out, aside from, people like, say, my mom, who was just all like, woo, Halloween, yeah! But that's actually kind of crazy that there was such someone who went out of their way to go, at least, like, who hit him with the Carlotta insult, be like, well, I don't know if this sounds like music. I was like, damn, I'd hate to be him. See how popular Nightmare is now and how beloved it is, and have to be reminded of that all the time, going, yeah, I used to question on whether these were even songs. It's like, dang. I mean, maybe he just wasn't familiar with the fact that, you know, Danny put them in a more operatic style, but who knows? I was like, that took me out, and it takes me out every time I think about it. It's like, wow, that's sad. I just thought that was pretty kind of funny, if I'm being perfectly honest. And also, okay, scroll up. Hell, I even ended up finding this old fanboard post that suggested that maybe, just maybe, this is Halloween from Nightmare, and Eric's verse about Monsieur, I bid you welcome might have a similar chord progression. I was like, oh, don't do that to me. Don't do that. I think it depends on who sings it, but maybe very vaguely they do. But I would definitely call that just a coincidence, because I believe Danny when he says he was trying not to go in a Weber direction. Weber trying not to sound like Danny Elfman, on the other hand, that I question. Regarding Love Never Dies, not Phantom, okay? Before people start going, ooh, taking that shit out of context. And what's nice is that, you know, I went around searching for YouTube comments for a lot of these things, and yes, there were definitely select fans who noticed these similarities. I'm just the one who decided to compile it. For Coney Island Waltz on a select video, Lolita Lexi wrote, the women singing in the background reminds me of the Edward Scissorhands theme. And they responded to by J Slip Family, same here, I thought the same thing. There's a place in the music where it definitely sounds like the theme of Edward Scissorhands. Anyway, I love this piece. And then on Beautiful, we have, Mr. Movie Mafia wrote, when you haven't seen the show but are just listening to the music and have no freaking idea what is happening, XD, this sounds like it's from a Tim Burton movie. Yeah, because it kind of is. And then someone wrote, Julia Dietrich 3584 wrote, Nightmare Before Christmas. For sure. Yes, definitely for sure. Then beneath the blue sky, we have at Miss Blackcat 4655. I don't know why this reminded me of Sally's song. Fangirl XO replied, yes, I thought I was the only one. Someone wrote, Katie Daly 3040 wrote, cool. And Shashuze NC5860 goes, yes. Oh, and here was another audio of Beneath the Moonless Sky. Somebody wrote, Madeline Brown 5 wrote, this really sounds like something from the Nightmare Before Christmas. I feel an AU coming on. Honey, I think the best way to do an AU of this would just be Jack and Sally have their little end moment duet on the Spiral Hill. And they just go like, they're kissing, and then from 100 miles away, you just hear Rami and Carol going, and I love you. And they just look up like, what the hell was that? Oy. Well, it certainly would be a funny AU, that's for sure. They got responded to by Allison Brock 1568. I thought the same thing. And then here's Beauty Underneath. Willie Garcia 2144 says, I imagine a Tim Burton version of this. It could be really fine with the style of him. Actually, why has not Burton thought about it? Yeah, he'd take one look at the pro shot and he'd just kind of go, oh, okay then. And I wonder if it would make him think about Batman going, huh, you know, when we used Phantom of the Opera to help complete Batman 1989, I did not think this was what was going to result out of it. And actually just a couple months ago, like 4 months ago, Adam Greenwood 9785 responded to a newer uploaded version of Beauty Underneath, said, we need a proper version of Love Never Dies, directed by Tim Burton in all its unhinged glory. I, of course, responded back to him. I talked about a lot of the connections that I had found and how perfectly fitting that would be. But I also really started to seriously think about the idea, and this is what I wrote. I said, I bet Tim would go to town on the Beauty Underneath spectacle, highlight the out-of-placeness of Bathing Beauty, and make Beneath the Moonless Sky about eye communication / the unspoken emotions, because I find that he's good at that in his romances. Hell, he'd probably even let the Phantom be called Eric finally, end quote. I mean, I'd see it. I mean, there was even a TikTok just like from a couple months ago of a guy who suggested like what a stop motion Phantom could look like from Tim Burton and Henry Selick, and I think that's so cool that even the year of our Lord 2026, there are people still asking. There are people still saying, Tim Burton, you should do Phantom. Tim Burton, you should do Love Never Dies. Fuck it, I think he should do both. I would happily watch either or. Especially now that Wednesday Season 2 is happening, and I do feel very strongly, well, has happened, I feel very strongly he would understand the theme of Phantom, and he would definitely get the core of Eric's character, and I definitely think he would make sure to end it with Eric's redemption. Because I think he has an understanding of that. I don't think he's gonna... Would be funny, though, if he just finds this video, so yeah. Tim Burton, if you somehow find this video, this is my PSA. I'm still on this. I'm not the only one who wants you to make Phantom, and there are people who want you to make Love Never Dies. I say... I mean, he's probably not going to find this, but hey, he's got an Instagram, so you never know. But I just think that's so cool that there are people still asking for that. Especially now in the wake of him actually, like, you know, bringing new Phantom fans in deliberately. Which still warms my heart so much. So yeah, this was kind of ended up being more of a ramble piece more than anything else. Because, like I said, this was a rabbit hole of connections and, you know, theories. So I brought up, you know, more musical connections, some story theories, just things to consider. But I definitely wanted to put this out there because I think it's important, especially with Phantom of the Opera turning 40 this year. And the fact that, as I've said before, a lot of us Phantom of the Opera fans are cut from the same cloth at the end of the day. We all had phases, although for me it wasn't really a phase. But we all had our times of enjoying Tim Burton's work. For me, it was less of a phase and more, I grew up with that because I was taught to like him. Because my parents were cool like that. Go me. So, and, you know, it's been really nice to be able to, you know, appreciate his work again the last couple of years, especially now that I see that he's kind of getting his groove back as a director, which I really appreciate, especially since he left, aka was freed from the clutches of the Disney Corporation. So, I think it's really cool, and now that I know that basically liking Tim Burton, liking Phantom of the Opera was an intentional subject matter, that they were meant to be seen and enjoyed together is kind of nuts. But I also do wonder what's Weber thinking. I mean, sometimes I wonder if he just has like a Dr. Doofenshmirtz moment when like Danny Elfman gets brought up in a conversation. He just goes like, Danny Elfman. Why is there so much of him in Love Never Dies once you notice? Especially The Nightmare Before Christmas. I wonder, it's like, was he a little jealous because Danny Elfman actually waltzed into Disney going, I have written you an opera. And not just a Broadway musical with opera light influence in it? I don't know. But it's certainly worth thinking about. And wondering about. And sharing with my community of people online. So yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's definitely been a bit of a long time coming, at least like 3 months in the making, and please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and I have a few ideas in the works that I put in my community posts, so whenever those get done, they'll get done, and I appreciate you watching this video, and leave a comment or whatever, and I'm happy to share all this info with fans, because I do think they deserve to know.